It is now the morning. I went to bed at 4 a.m. last night. Look at this mess I left. Look, my clothes. Jeez. I got a stalk of broccoli, coffee, pistachios. Look at this mess. This is embarrassing. Whenever I give advice about how to work on stuff, audio electronics, your car, whatever the hell you're working on, I always say, don't do this. Don't let yourself get to this point. Clean up after yourself. You'll work more efficiently. It'll be neat at the end of the day when you're done. I never take my own advice. As you can see, I get into such like a flow that I don't want to stop for nothing. I start getting creative. And as I said from the beginning, putting together your home recording studio is going to be such a creative process because there's so many things you can do. As I said, it's early in the morning. I'm freezing. I don't feel like cleaning that up. Times like this, I was really glad I hired RoboCody. Hey RoboCody, can you clean up in there? I don't know about you, but I'm going to get some coffee.
Okay, while RoboCody is cleaning up, let's respond to a few comments from the last video. And I feel like the last video and this video are going to be a little more slower than I think the kind of majority of the videos on this series are going to be. So just kind of deal with it. Apparently you guys like when I ramble, so let's ramble a little bit for a second while RoboCody cleans up. So let's just go through some comments. A few of the comments were talking about the plastic coil wrapped around the power wires not necessarily being the best solution, and I don't disagree at all. I've thought about this quite a bit, and we're going to have to see how it goes. Obviously, when you need to take out a unit and you need to uncoil that plastic loop, it's a pain in the ass. It takes a while, and it also gives you a pretty good hand workout. It's not easy to do. I fully acknowledge that. I don't anticipate having to take out these units that much. I usually more have issues with audio cables and rerouting stuff, so I'm more concerned about keeping the audio cables easy to replace and take out. I could be wrong. Maybe very quickly I need to take out a couple of my compressors and the EQ and whatnot, and I'm going to be cursing at myself for putting the power cables in the coil, but no big deal. I'll take it off and I'll put a bunch of Velcro, reusable cable ties on there, and, that'll work just fine. I do find that the Velcro ties, while they're really great and easy to put on quickly and take off quickly, they're not the most permanent solution, so if you're moving wires around a lot, I don't really recommend that, and right now, while I'm putting everything together, I'm going to be moving all the wires back there down a lot, and having the power cables especially coiled in that plastic cable, more or less screwed onto the sidewall, it makes even just working on and planning on the rack a lot easier than if they just had those Velcro ties and they were hanging about in free space. So, I'm definitely open to changing the methods there. Little Blue Fox Music Studio mentions using a Dymo label printer for, I guess, what I assume labeling the power cables, and I'm probably going to employ a similar device for the front of the patch bay when I go to label the ins and outs to all my equipment. Those things are great, as that commenter suggests. I think for the power cables, though, I really do like the big, ugly white tags on it because it's super easy to read when you're, on your knees beneath a desk and it's dark and you can't really, reach up too easily. Tomic653 mentions setting up their own cheap studio and usually getting discouraged looking at insane setups, in this video not, hurting as badly as other videos. And, that's kind of the whole point of this channel and series, just to show you how a regular jabroni can put together a home recording studio. It's not going to be professional by any means, but I don't want it to be professional. I want it to be kind of my own little unique take on home recording. And, as I try to say in all my videos, a lot of this gear has been gotten for so cheap. A lot of the gear and cables that I'm going to be using to set up the studio have just been sitting, in my spare rack because I've bought them over the years for really cheap in hopes of being able to use them one day. For example, I've had 4 racks of patch bays just sitting there for years because when I see one of those for $1 or $5 at a garage sale or a flea market, I buy it and think, okay, maybe one day in the far future I'll be able to use this for something. And, that's what I encourage you to do. Just stay vigilant, look for good deals, and, accrue gear in a reasonable time frame instead of doing it all at once. Right now, I'm having to save up money for, a few things like power conditioners, and I'm going to be buying a bunch of acoustical treatment, materials to make acoustic panels. And, it's a lot easier to swallow spending hundreds of dollars on this stuff when, this is the first time I've spent money on music-related stuff in a good amount of time, years at this point. So, spacing it out is obviously more ideal than buying a shit ton of gear in one go. Marauder Music talks about keeping one side of the rack, all the AC wires, and the other side, all the signal wires. And that's actually a great point. I didn't think about that. I'll have to see if it's a problem for my setup. I'll try to keep all my signal cables away from my power wires. That's something that I did not have the luxury of considering in my last setup in the other room. So, I'm going to think about that. That's a really good point. And I think the last comment I'll talk about is from Scott Shields. And first of all, you say you always put a lot of stuff in your comments. Dude, that's totally fine. I always read every single comment I get, at least for the most part, even the super long ones. And, it's nice. Like, for example, Scott, sometimes you say things I agree with. Sometimes you say things I disagree with. All of it's good. I like to take all opinions into account. I am certainly not the monolith for anything recording wise, right? I'm just a random dude that has my own kind of unique style, so I'm wrong all the time. So, and a lot of this is very opinion based, so I always enjoy listening to what you people have to say. Now, Scott's talking about, you mentioned a couple things, but I'll stick with the most important thing that stuck with me. You mentioned making your own snakes, and I did consider that at one point. The thing is, though, I find personally soldering RCA connectors, and hell, even quarter-inch plugs can be a pain in the ass. Quarter-inch plugs are a lot easier, but RCA connectors can be a real pain in the dick. Now, I'm not the best solderer, if that's the correct word in the world, but I'm pretty decent, so it's just I find it to be really tedious, and I'm not sure about the long-term maintenance of such a thing if I'm going to have issues in the future if I'm moving these cables around a lot. I did make sure for the snakes that I'm going to be buying moving forward that they are ones that you can repair. Like the Hosa cables, they have like that plastic molding on all their connectors, and once those goes, you just have to chop it off. There's no fixing it. There's no cutting back the wire and resoldering it. No, you just have to cut it off, put your own connector on. So being able to repair and possibly alter snakes is definitely something that, I'm going to look for in the future whenever I buy a snake.
Honey, I wish our robot boy would hurry up in there. Dude, what are you doing? Dude, I just thought it'd be a cool homage to Cody's Lab. I've been watching a lot of Chicken Hole Base lately. No one cares. What are you doing? Get back to work, man. What about you? You're part of the skit. You're me. That's different. Okay? That's different. Why do you keep wearing two hats? I don't know. It kind of just happened, and I've kind of been digging it ever since, alright? Anyway, this is stupid. Okay, so I finally cleaned up everything for the most part. I put a lot of stuff on the desk, but that's okay for now. I made some subtle changes to the rack since the last time we talked. I made some changes to this rack as well. I actually finally came up with the plan of how I'm going to connect the rack, the mixing board, the tape machine, and the Elisa Station 24. Kind of just hit me in a dream how I'm going to wind up doing it. I'll explain that once I get everything hooked up. But I'm also thinking about getting or replacing this bottom patch bay in the rack with ones that are RCA connections. This way, the three patch bays on this rack are all RCAs. It'll be a little less cumbersome than the jacks. The jacks are a lot heavier, they're bulkier, the wires are thicker, so, the RCAs will be nice there. And I think I should be able to repurpose, let's see, one of these, yes, the one in the middle here has RCA connectors, and I think in the past I switched these around so the RCAs are on the front and the quarter-inch jacks are on the back. I think I'm going to wind up doing that. Let me see if I can do that right now, actually. So I just realized the patch bay I had in the rack already down there, all I had to do was just turn the ears around, and now the front of it is going to have the RCAs, exactly what I wanted. Ah, perfect. Now it's all RCA. It's going to be very convenient for me to connect stuff from here. It also has the added benefit of this patch bay, which I'm planning on connecting channel 1 through 16 on my mixing board for the inserts, so I could insert compressors, EQ, whatever I need from the tracks coming back from my tape machine before it gets to my fader. The back of it is now the 1/4 inch connections. And the reason that is very convenient is twofold. The first is that I find the 1/4 inch jacks are a little more sturdier and they can last a little bit longer if they have some abuse to it. The second thing is all of the snakes that I have found online that are used for insert cable snakes, they almost exclusively all have the 1/4 inch connection. So it's going to make it a lot easier for me to find used snakes online. I have to get 16 connections there, and that's going to be 4 separate snakes because they sell those insert snake cables in gangs of 4 channels. So I need 4 of those. It's going to be pretty expensive. It might take me a little bit to find good deals on those snakes. I'm certainly not going to go on eBay right now and pay the exorbitant fees, or prices rather, that people list these snakes at. If you are patient, you could get a lot of this stuff for cheap. All of the snakes I have gotten, which I had more than I thought, I have probably about 10 different snakes. I always try to buy big lots of them so I could get 4 at once, and it's usually a much cheaper price. And as I said, just be patient, check eBay regularly, and when you see a good deal, take it because you're going to need it in the future. This goes for all of my gear. I've gotten a lot of this stuff for very reasonable prices just because I was patient. Some of the gear, like I've been looking at for new gear, as I told you, I bid last night. I didn't update you guys. I bid on 2 separate power conditioners, and I wound up winning both of them for good prices. But when I searched for these 2 units, one's going to go here, one's going to go in there, the prices that people were asking on the listings were often more than it would cost if it was a brand new piece of equipment. So, I mean, these eBay prices are out of control. I don't know what these people are thinking. This is not what eBay was intended to be like. But whatever, those people aren't selling their listings, obviously, because they must stay on there forever. And you got to capitalize on the deals that are reasonable. That's just really the best way to make this affordable, because if you start looking at brand new snakes and cables, I mean, it's easily $200 for a quality one. And if you're putting together a professional recording studio, maybe investing $200 on a quality snake that you know is going to last you decades and it's going to be able to withstand abuse, maybe you could justify that. But for a home recordist myself, buying these, Hosa is, I don't know how to pronounce that, Hosa is like a very common snake cable company, that makes them. But, those are really good home recording quality level of cables. They certainly cannot be, whipped around like Indiana Jones, but they could withstand a moderate amount of abuse. A couple of my snakes, a couple of the colors are broken in the snake. There's a loose connection. So I'm going to have to buy a couple replacement 1/4 inch jack connectors as well as RCA connectors. I'm going to, fix the few that are broken. This way all my snakes are completely, 8 for 8 or 16 for 16 on all the channels. Yeah, so let's see where we're going with that. So I'm thinking about installing a 6-foot shelf right here that was previously downstairs. Let's see if I can move this storage rack filled with stuff on those little sliders. So, it wasn't as easy as I thought. I removed the shit ton of records that were on there that were really, really heavy, but it is doable. I think I just have to do it a little better next time and make sure I don't drag it too hard. Anyway, I have enough room to put the ladder here now, so I could install this shelf with ease. I don't know how good of an angle I'll be able to get for the installation, but it'll be easier to do without this rack in the way, obviously. Probably the last thing I feel like doing right now is doing some audio repair while I'm setting everything up in this room. However, I cannot in good conscience leave this plug to this tube radio that I've restored before. mainly because I'm putting this way up on the shelf, and you know, who knows how long it's going to be until I turn this thing back on, but I don't want to forget about this, which I don't know how I would, but this is just a gigantic fire hazard and should be addressed immediately. And while I should be putting a 3-pronged cord on this for extra safety, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to salvage this old plug just because why the hell not? I don't use this radio regularly. Might as well use the old cord. It's fine enough. Just don't touch it, you dummy.
He is capable of rebounding for whatever, and he's going into the end zone, and that is a touchdown for New England. Stephon Diggs right there with the catch in the end zone. By the way, that was a dart of a pass to get that one in. So
honestly, if I were to do it again, I would just build a wooden version of this. I much prefer working with wood than with metal. These things are a nightmare. I could have put casters on something wood really easily like I did to my desk. But, listen, this is still a nice rack. I can't complain too much. Okay, the last time we left off, this was set up a little differently. I wound up rearranging, putting different equipment, taking stuff from my old room, putting it in here, changing this up a little bit. I've been doing some changes here. Now this is, once again, temporary. It's likely to change. This guitar amp is certainly not going to be there. But for now, I really just need to clean up as much room in here as possible. And the biggest thing here is the old bed that was in here is now gone. That is a huge improvement here. I'm going to ultimately put my drum set there. Maybe I'll get to that tonight. The last where we left off with this rack here, I wanted to further clean up the wiring in the back. Sorry, it's a little dark. The wiring in the back. I went to Home Depot. I got a bunch of more clips. I got really thick ones that I'm going to put on the side of the rack here. I'm also going to wind up putting some all along this desk as well, but we're not quite there yet. Right now I'm just trying to focus on the rack here because it's really important that I get that done correctly and making sure that all the wires do not have any stress on them. All of this stuff here, these 3 boxes, this 4th box, and this bin clean that I rarely ever use are going to a storage unit. I have not yet to do that. When I do that, that'll be the day that I finally get the control board. I'm really hoping to do that this weekend. I'm hoping my friend does not bail again this time, but we shall see. I did win some bids on some power conditioners. One is going to go here most likely, and that is going to feed basically everything in this room that is audio related. That is going to be a voltage regulator as well, so that's why that's going to be the main power source of this whole room for audio equipment. I also won a bid, as I discussed in a previous video, the 12 strip that's going to go back there. I should be getting those within a few days. We'll see. I'm just gonna kind of wait on this stuff for now. You have to realize the next couple of steps for me are going to happen much slower than the first 4 episodes did, because those first 4 episodes was when I had basically the first free weekend in a really long time, and I capitalized on that as much as I could. I literally worked the whole weekend pretty much just on this, and for me to stretch that out over the course of weeks, you know, that just wasn't going to be ideal. So I got as much done as possible. So I think tonight I'm going to put the drum set in the corner here, and once this drum set's in here, it is going to say so much about how this room is going to be laid out, because the drum set takes up a pretty good amount. Now this is the most room I've ever had for my drum set, so I'm excited, because if we go to the room downstairs, excuse the messy house, you'll see the remnants of the vinyl packing video I just did last night. The drum set here, I mean, it's really squashed. You could probably definitely tell on camera. I am squashed into that corner. When I play, my back is pretty much up against that windowsill. It sucks. It's not ideal. So I'm hoping, you know, with that new area, I'm going to be able to be more comfortable and play like a goddamn human, because the setup here has just never been ideal. I mean, look how everything's just so cramped in here. I'm really hoping I'm going to be able to use as much of the real estate upstairs as possible. As you can see here, I took all of the equipment down. Really sad to see. I cried a little bit. I started to take some equipment from here, but I don't quite have the room yet to put this shelf upstairs. Once I get the computer desk out of there, that will go up there. And as you can see, I didn't start taking down any of the artwork. That is going to be, you know, in the last of the step. I really want to get all the bulky stuff out of here as soon as possible. I'm going to wind up replacing the rug in here, the carpet. It is beyond dirty. It's been the same carpet in here since my mom first moved in here, so I'm going to paint it, carpet, and then the piano, that's going to wind up going in here. And that's the reason I'm mentioning this, is that's also music related and part of my studio per se. Now, recording the piano in this room is obviously going to be much more difficult because the recording room is going to be way upstairs. I was able to get away with it very easily when the tape machine was in here and the piano was right there. I just need a microphone cable. But now, me being all the way upstairs, you know, pressing record on my tape machine, running down, having 3 or 4 XLR cables daisy chained to this room, and then I'm going to put my headphones on. You know, it's just not going to be ideal. And really, as you know, the cost of tape is expensive, and any, you know, tape I could save, I would like that. So running down, I mean, even the 10 seconds there it's going to take to set up, you know, that's added tape length. So most likely when I do piano recordings, if it's going to be a really important part, I'm probably going to bring down my two-track machine, set it up here, record the piano, either mono or stereo, depending on what I need, and then I'm going to take that tape up to my studio and put it on my 16-track from there, because I think that's going to be the best way to do it, unless I have another helping hand in the studio, or else maybe it's just a small piano part that's going in a chorus that, you know, I could run downstairs and be super quiet during the verse when there's no piano part. You know, hopefully I'm making sense. You know, I tend to ramble. You guys still watch it, whatever. Let's just put this damn drum set upstairs. Holy shit, this rug has seen better days. Man, I don't even know if I could rehab this thing. I mean, I've been battling with this goddamn fold forever. And that's just because my room was so small, it would always bunch up. You can see it's bunched up here. You can see the spot where the Speed King is. We're going to try to clean this thing and iron it as much as possible and see where we get. Well, news to me, you can't iron an area rug, so I need a new plan and possibly a new iron. In case you ever wondered what 10 years of funky drumming concentrated looks like, that's it, nice and brown. I'm gonna drink it to get all that funk back. Okay, so this is it. This is where the drum set is going to live. It is certainly not as spacious as I was like. It's pretty similar to the setup downstairs. I'm really close to the walls. The hi-hat is super close to the wall. I don't know about that just yet. I have to back it up more. I could extend the drum set outwards, but I want to leave this area open. I might stack the microphone stands here. Seems like a pretty good spot to stack those. I might even move this rack a little farther to the left here. Maybe I want more room here. I'm not 100% sure yet. Now, the reason I'm putting it in the corner like this is for a very similar reason in the other room. I want to be able to put a microphone somewhere around here, as if I'm standing right here. Now, I'm not sure if this is going to be where I'm going to set up my main drum microphone. Downstairs, this is where I set up a ribbon microphone. Right there. And it would get the kit, obviously, and then the back end into the opened area of the living room down there. However, I am in a closed room. I'm not sure if that's a good idea yet. I'm going to have to do some tests. I might not want to use a ribbon mic anymore, which I really hope not, because I love my ribbon mic. But we're going to have to try it out. I will say, I was playing a little bit with my hands, and the bass drum sounded way tighter in this room than it did downstairs, which surprised me. It surprised me. Like I said, I was only playing with my hands because it's too late to play with the sticks, but from what I could hear so far, it sounds pretty good. So, time will tell, obviously. I'm going to have to tune the drums. And here, compared to downstairs, the ceiling is, first of all, slanted. Hopefully you can tell on camera. It's slanted. It's much higher at that end of the room than here. So there's two things there. One, I might start doing a true overhead microphone position because now I have room. And two, since the roof is slightly slanted, I'm hoping that it'll direct some of the sound that's hitting the ceiling a little off angle, and it won't be right on top of the drums. I'm hoping that would help with the sound. Hopefully you can see what I'm saying. It's kind of hard to show you on camera. I don't know if, where is, yeah, I don't know if you're going to be able to tell, but I don't think this is a steep of enough angle to send it that way. You know, it's still going to be reflected directly somewhere right in front of the drum, so I'm going to have to play around with it. Overall, though, this studio is starting to feel like it's come together. I'm trying to imagine what it's going to be like sitting at my control desk. And downstairs, when I was sitting at my control board, mixing board, whatever the hell you want to call it, my ass was basically scraping on the drum set. So I have a lot more room here. And this is going to be amazing. When I used to record downstairs, my feet, you know, I was like stepping over things, going like this, doing the fucking Macarena because I had like 2 square feet to work with. I'm basically going to have, if I set everything up how I'm imagining, I'm going to have an okay amount of floor space in here. You know, the amps and stuff I'm planning on putting on this side of the room, the computer is. So that's going to be occupied. I'm going to have a shelf there as well, a bunch of shelves really. But wow, I'm going to have space in the middle. This is going to be really nice. I've been really slumming it up downstairs, so I'm excited for that. I think that's all I'm going to do tonight because I got work in the morning and I'm tired. Okay, signing off. So I'm sitting here admiring this beaut, toying with ideas of how I'm going to arrange the rest of this recording studio. And it kind of occurred to me that I screwed up big time with this shelf placement. And of course, I just put it up and it's like, damn, I screwed up. Now, the stuff on this shelf, I've committed to only need at most once a year. These are not high-use items, so I don't mind having to go outside to get the ladder to get to them. So if they were farther up there, what do I care? I'm getting the ladder regardless. I can't reach that stuff as is. You know, that would have gave me much better use of that room there. And, you know, I could have put acoustical treatment in a better spot closer to the drum set. So there's a chance I'm going to be moving that. I really don't feel like it, but when you want things done right, sometimes you got to make sacrifices. That might be one of them. We'll see. Let me think about that. I'm still thinking about where and if I'm going to hang guitars, and this seems like prime real estate right here. I still have that olive green shelf that I think I'm going to put right here with the bass amp, twin reverb, and maybe I'll hang 2 guitars there. I need to be able to get into this crawl space, so having 2 guitar anchors there aren't ideal because I have to put a ladder there, but I think if I measure my ladder and I space them far enough apart, you know, I could put my ladder on the wall there, get into that crawl space very easily, and, you know, all I have to do is take the guitars off the wall. So we'll think about that as well. I'm just kind of talking out loud. I'm curious to see where the design of this studio leads me and see if, you know, I keep any of the ideas I have in the beginning. I already changed so much just in the first couple episodes, so it'll be interesting to see.